Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making a child's toolbox. Well, as you guys know, I am always trying to promote getting your children into the shop and carrying the craft on to the next generation to instill the love of woodworking in our children, the same as what we have. Guys, it all starts off with some simple materials and some simple methods, starting with some 3/4 inch thick pine. The first thing we want to do is we want to square off one side or one edge of the stock. And for that, we're going to be using a fork plane. Well, the next thing that you're going to need to do is cut a piece for the bottom of the toolbox. And for that, we're going to need a piece that is 16 inches long by 6 1/4 wide. So I'm going to cross cut this here at the 16 inches. We're actually going to go just a little bit bigger than 16 inches and then clean it up with the shooting board and a plane. And there we have the length. Just going to mark our width here. And we're marking these a little proud as we're going to true them up with the hand plane, but there we go. For now, that mark will suit us fine, and we'll cut that just a little proud of 6 1/4. And now that we have our bottom all trued up and cut, we're going to cut the pieces for our sides. And for that, we're going to need 2 pieces. They'll be 16 inches long, which will match our base piece. And as well, they're going to be 5 3/4 of an inch wide and 3/4 of an inch thick. So what I've done with both of these sides squared and this side squared, I've cross cut it to about, I'd say 3/16 outside of its final dimension. And we'll just use the shooting board to clean up that joint and bring it right down to the 16 inches that we need. Well, we now have 2 sides and 1 bottom. And we're going to take the bottom and put it away or off to the side for now. And in each one of these side pieces, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put a rabbet in the bottom edge of it. It's going to be 1/4 of an inch deep and 3/4 of an inch wide, or the thickness of our bottom. So to save measuring and that sort of thing, we can just lay our bottom there on our side piece, line it up so that we know we've got the right thickness, and then with a sharp pencil we can mark the line. Now we're going to need to score that line so that we get a clean cut, but the first thing we want to do is mark the thickness of our rabbet. So we'll just clamp this in place here and take our marking gauge set for 1/4 inch, and we're just gonna scoot it all the way along there like that, and then this side here, and just use your marking gauge to mark that 3/4 inch wide rabbet. So now it's just a matter of cutting it out. So we're going to use a sharp 1-inch chisel just to clean up to the line here. Just like that. And that way, anything that we have scored there with our marking gauge, we're going to get that clean, crisp line there. Now, if you're not sure, you don't have a marking gauge to score that, this is just as acceptable. So you can just work that all the way across, and then when you get to the opposite end, then just do as I was doing with this chisel. Let me give you a top view so you can see what's happening here. And you can see we're just coming back about 3/16 of an inch and just driving the chisel in until that section kind of pops clean. And where we drove the chisel down through there, you should get a nice clean edge there now. Now this one here isn't quite cut enough, so we'll just be careful that we don't tear it out. There we go. All right, so once you get that done, we're going to hog out the rest of the material with our 1-inch chisel, just basically to get it roughly where we want it. And then we're going to fine tune it with our router plane. But before we do that, we just want to cut this shoulder down to its final depth. Well, now that we have it mostly hogged out, we're going to use our router plane and just come in here and finish this rabbet off. You just want to be sure that when you're doing this, that you come in with the blade and kind of pare it off at the end here so that you don't get tear out on the end, just like that. You see how I'm just kind of using it almost like a skew and cleaning up the edge first, and then I'm taking out the rest of the material there. Just like that. So we're going to continue on down to its final depth of 1/4 inch thick. Well, with the rabbets done, we now need a dado in each end here, 2 inches in from each of the ends. So 2 inches, just like that. And we're just gonna square that off. Just like that. And what we're going to need is a dado right to the top, the same thickness as our material here, so we can get a scrap and lay it over top and just mark our thickness. Once we get our thickness marked, we'll use a marking knife to score our edges and do our 3/4 wide, 1/4 inch deep dado on each of our side pieces of our toolbox. And just like we did with our rabbet, we're just going to take a little bit of this material out of here so that we get that clean edge. Just like that. And same thing on this side. And then just like we did on the rabbet, we're going to use a saw to cut down to our 1/4 inch depth and then chisel the majority of it out and follow it up with the router plane to clean it up completely. And once you're done with the dado, you can just test it. This one is actually kind of loose, but that's okay. In the end, it'll all fit together and it'll be just fine. So we're gonna get the second one done and then do the same thing on the opposite side piece. And now that you have a mess on your bench and the rabbet and the 2 dados are cut in each one of these pieces, it's now time to make the uprights. And for that we need two pieces. They're going to be 12 inches long and 6¼ inches wide. Now I don't think we need yet another video of me with the router plane and the saw and the chisel and all that. It's the exact same process for straightening things with the shooting board and all of that. So I'm going to cut our two pieces, and I'll see you when I get that done. I finished my side pieces and the top sections are cut out and squared. We've got a few imperfections here with a couple of knots. I'm not concerned. That is nothing more than, we'll call it a design feature, shall we? So what I want to do here now is I want to mark, now that I've got this dry fit, I want to mark where our uprights here meet with the sides of our toolbox. So we're just going to give a little pencil mark, and then we're going to work on the shaping of our side pieces. Well, we have our marks here where the top of our board is, right here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up just 1/4 inch from that line, and I'm going to draw a square line right across our board. Just lightly, like that. And we now want to mark a center line. It's now time to mark for both the hole for our handle, and as well we want to shape our I guess our side walls, our end walls, whatever you want to call that. So that's where we're going to go next and start marking for the handle. So what I'm going to do is from the top edge, I'm going to come down 1½ inches, and that will be the center of our handle. We're also going to take a compass, put the point of it at that 1½ inch mark, and we're just going to draw a circle here like this. And from that circle, we're going to extend these lines all the way down. All right, just like this. All right, and then we'll draw a curve from this bottom line here right up to our side wall, just like that. So what I'm going to do before I go any further is I'm going to mark the other one, and then we're going to drill the hole for our handle. And what that's going to be is a Forstner bit hole. We're going to say that it's going to be about 1/2 inch in diameter, and we're probably going to bring it just deeper than half of the thickness of our board. Well, in the interest of keeping it with hand saws, I'm going to use the Ryoba saw to rip down until the curve starts, and then I'm going to finish it off with a fret saw as well as cutting our top radius. And then we'll cut the shape of the top. And then once you get that cut, you can give it a good sanding. Well, we're going to take a measurement between our two uprights, measuring approximately from center to center of our boards here. And it looks like it's going to be 11¼ inches. So I'm going to cut a piece of that dowel. You heard me the first time, I'll say it again, 11¼ inches. Well, if you guys remember, we drilled a 1/2 inch hole in our end pieces to accept our handle. And we all know very well that that 3/4 dowel that we just cut, this one here is not going to fit in a 1/2 inch hole. So what I'm doing is I'm just roughly marking here a line from each end 3.5 inches in. And I have a scrap piece of 1/2 inch or of the pine material here with a 1/2 inch hole drilled in it, the same depth as what we did in our uprights. And I'm just going to use my block plane and I'm going to trim this down to make it fit and shape the handle. Now the reason for that mark at 3.5 inches is basically that's as far as I want to plane. I want to keep it at its full dimension beyond that mark. So we're just going to work at this and keep rotating it with the one hand and using the plane with your other hand so that you will get this plane down evenly all the way around. And once you get it down to the dimension that you think, you can test it here and, you know, see that it fits. Once you're happy with both ends being shaped, then we can move on to making the final 2 pieces of our children's toolbox. And once you're happy with that and how it fits, just give this a sanding, a hand sanding, to take away any of the plane marks that are left in it. And now we can shape the other side. Well, the last 2 pieces that we need are going to be 2 inches wide, 3/4 of an inch thick, and they're going to be 6¼ inches long. Well, for each one of these pieces, centered on the 6¼ side, and then 1¾ of an inch out from that, and then 1¾ of an inch out in the other direction, we're going to drill a 5/16 hole centered on the 2-inch side. So we'll just mark each of these centered here, and then we're going to have to cut a rabbet for this to be accepted by our side panels. Well, the last thing that we're going to do is right here at the top. Let me just put this the way it's supposed to go. We've got our rabbet down here. We've got our 2 dados for our uprights. That 2-inch piece, or the 2-inch wide piece we just cut, that's going to go right up here in our top ends. So what I'm going to do is, same as what we did down here, I'm going to put a 3/4 inch wide, 1/4 inch deep rabbet from the edge of our dado right across to the end of our board, and that is where those pieces will sit. Now, I don't think we need a video of it. You guys have seen me do this all the way along here with these side pieces and then with these dados. So I'm just going to cut these quick, and when you see me again, after sanding all of the edges here, getting some things rounded off and softening some edges, I will see you back here for the assembly. Well, it's time for the assembly, and it's not really rocket science. You've been basically putting this thing together and taking it apart for the entire video. So I'm just going to add some glue where needed here, and just like this. And then we're going to start putting this together. Make sure that you have plenty of clamps on hand. And just put the pieces in where you know they go. So this piece will go right here. And of course, this piece will go here. But before it can go here, we got to slide our handle in. we're going to leave our handle loose. We're not going to glue that in. Reason being, I would like for it to spin to make it a little more comfortable for the hand. Just like this. And I think what I would like here as well is some glue on the bottom of each one of these uprights. Just like that. Slide this together. Just like that. And we're going to sit this upright now. And now, just like we did on the other side, we will apply glue into the rabbits and the dados. And up the side here, that's done. And now we'll just slide this in place here, just like this. And before we clamp the whole thing together, don't forget to put your end shelves in, just like this here. A little bit of glue along that end piece. Same with this side. A little bit of glue along the end. Slide it in place. And now we're going to throw some clamps on there and let it dry up. And there you have it. A children's toolbox. Guys, oh my gosh, what a lot of work for an afternoon, but what an absolute blast. What a ton of fun. From using the Ryoba saw both in crosscut and in ripping, as well as the shooting board, using that to square off edges and creep up on our measurements. The fret saw or coping saw, whatever you want to call that. I had jet saws. Guys, the router plane, chisels. I don't know what to say about this project other than it was a heck of a lot of fun, and my arms are killing me. It's a lot of work, even though it was pine. Guys, a fantastic project, because look at how cute this darn thing is. What child wouldn't love to come out with mom or dad or grandma and grandpa in the shed or the shop and have their own little toolbox to come along and do their work while grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, whoever is doing their work as well. Talk about your opportunity for bonding, and all over a little bit of pine in an afternoon with some hand tools. Guys, I hear a lot of people talk about things like, oh yeah, sure, it's so easy when you've got that big jointer or that table saw or this or that or whatever. Nonsense. That is an absolute excuse and nothing more, because this project was made, other than the drill press, there wasn't a single power tool used in this entire project. And if I had one of those egg beater hand tools or hand drills, I would have used that too, because I was enjoying the process so much. So don't tell me you can't do it because you haven't got the same equipment that I've got. Don't have a little handheld router plane? No problem. Use a chisel. Use a darn chisel. Like, there is no excuse, guys, when it comes to coming out to the shop and having some fun. Not everything has to be 100% perfect. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's project, because gosh knows I've had a heck of a great time bringing it to you. Honestly, I need a shower after that day's build, but thoroughly enjoyed every minute. If you haven't already, guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I hope you're going to try this for yourself. I hope you're going to get out of your armchair and get into the shed and start doing some of the stuff that I'm showing you how to do. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.